This web scraper is blazing fast and completely free. It just scraped 73 URLs in 24 seconds. I'm going to show you how all this works, including building an AI agent with it, starting with the first step. What is Crawl4AI? Well, it's an open source LLM-friendly web crawler and scraper. Since last October, it has skyrocketed in popularity. And it's built for LLMs with the markdown specially made for RAG. It's very fast. I mean, it is very fast. I will show you that. It's also open source and deployable with Docker locally. So let's get into making our first crawl. Essentially, to run your first crawl, I essentially copied this. I pasted that here in my first crawl example. And so let's go ahead and run this now. So I'm gonna say Python 01 first crawl, and then we're gonna see it being able to crawl and scrape crawl4ai.com. And it's done. It took 0.9 seconds to go to crawl4ai.com, put this in nice markdown format. As you can see, this is nice markdown, and then this would be good for the LLM model to take care of and do something with. Then this is the website, crawl4ai.com. If we come to the homepage, again, it was at least #1 trending GitHub repository, and this is like basically what you need to do to get started. So at the top here, they have installation, they have the Docker deployment, and they have a quick start. Well, I did basically went over the quick start for you, so I'm not going to go over all of these. But one thing I do want to know, that you should know, is what's the next step, right? We crawled and scraped one URL. So the next step would be, well, we could have like a for loop that goes over a ton of URLs, and that could be the next like sequential step in this order. And well, I have code for that. So what you can do, it has so many ways that you can modify how this is done. So we're going to instantiate a browser config, a crawler run config. So you can have headless mode. You can make sure it's verbose. Here are other arguments that you can use when it does this. But now we're going to create the async web crawler. We're going to instantiate it. We're going to start the web crawler, and then we're going to we can input a bunch of URLs. So for each of those URLs, we're going to crawl them, and then I'm just going to run essentially the same thing that we just ran. I'm going to give this crawler.arun, so asynchronously run. I'm going to give it the URL and then the crawl config. And then it's going to basically return whether it was successful or not. So here I have a bunch of CrewAI document pages that I got. And this isn't like the most efficient way, but I just want to show you the next step in like the order and how you would try to approach this. So this time we can say Python 02 sequential, and now we can run this. Okay, so now it's starting to do the crawling. It's iterating over each URL. It's telling us kind of how long it takes for each URL. It's fetching it, scraping it, and then telling us that it's complete. Okay, so it's just going to go through all of these, and then now it's closing the crawler, so it's done. Okay, and that didn't take too long. If you add those up, maybe 25 seconds? I don't know, I can't do quick math. I'm not that smart, but that was like the next way. We can just give it a bunch of URLs, and then we can have it run each one on top of another. Well, how about we take that a step further and do even better? And again, their documentation has all of these different ways that you can configure. You can configure the markdown generation, the page interaction, local files. You can download media. You can have lazy loading, like I said, proxy and security, and multi-URL crawling. So Crawl4AI supports advanced dispatches for parallel or throttled crawling. Okay, so they have the arun method, which is what we have been using in a loop. Or we can use the arun many, which handles multiple URLs with proper control. Or we can even do better than that. We can have custom dispatcher behavior for your specific needs. Okay, we have memory management, rate limits, etc. And one of the ways that we can really improve it is batch processing. This means that we can process multiple things together at a time in separate batches. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it about 73 URLs, and we're going to see just how fast it can run. Now, using their async run many, I don't know if it's that my computer can't handle it. The memory I have, I don't have a lot. It just can't really handle that, but that did not work well for me. So I'm going to show you what worked well for me, and it did it very, very well. So I have this asynchronous function called crawl parallel, where it can take in a number of URLs. I have a browser config, a crawl config. That's actually the same from the previous one. Again, I'm creating an async crawler. I'm starting it. And then what I'm kind of doing is I'm printing out like the start time and end time, so you can just kind of see how long each of these take. Now I'm still going to use the crawler.a run, which is what we've used in the last two examples for kind of like basic examples. And then what I'm doing though, is that I'm setting it to a task variable and I'm appending that to a list of tasks right here. Okay, so then I say result equals await async.io.gather all of those tasks. Now what this is doing is this is a Python function to run these processes in parallel together concurrently, meaning that they're not going to be done in sequential order, and we're going to be doing them in a certain number of batches together. So the big takeaway from this is that instead of having everything done sequentially, we're going to be batching about 10, or you can do more than that, together at the same time. So we're going to be doing 10 and then 10 and then 10 and then so forth. Or it can be 5 and 5 and 5, whatever your number is that you want running together. That is going to significantly improve the time it takes. And what we are doing this time is I'm going to take the sitemap from CrewAI, and then I'm going to pass that in, and I'm going to get all of the URLs from there, because if you were to look at it, let's go ahead and look at the sitemap from CrewAI Docs. There is this, each URL has this property called lock. So we're going to take each of these URLs, and then we're going to batch each of these and then retrieve the markdown or get the content, retrieve that as markdown, and send that back. So I'm going to say Python 03. Now I'm going to run this. So it found 73 URLs. It started just a minute ago. I actually had to stop recording because my computer couldn't really handle recording software and doing this. But when I just did it, it took 27.24 seconds. So it crawled 73 URLs in almost the time it only took to do 7 when they were sequential. So this is like the power of running these in parallel using concurrency. Now the question is, okay, great. This is free, it's open source, and it can be used local. How can we use this with an AI agent? Well, we can just simply create a tool that we supply the URLs for, and then it can run this and return markdown. We can summarize it, or we could add it to Quadrant as a long-term memory. There's a lot of things you can do with that. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let me show you. And if you really want to learn more about AI agents and automations, join my school community. I will teach you how to do all these things. This is the year to learn. You don't want to be left behind. And this is just the time to learn this, right? It's going to be here. It's going to stay. And I will help you reach your goals. So what I've done is I actually created a crawl crew just using the typical CLI command for CrewAI. And then the only difference is in the config, I have the agents in the YAML file. I only have one researcher, and I only have one task for that researcher. So I just want to say, I want you to crawl a sitemap, return a list of URLs, and I'm going to supply the sitemap URL. Okay, there's multiple things you can do here. You can just give it a list of URLs, whatever that is. But I actually want the crawler to do that heavy lifting for me. So then the task is to just kind of give a concise and brief summary of these results, because we're going to get the markdown from all of the results. So then this means that in the tools, I have to create a custom tool. Well, by default, you get the framework for a custom tool. So what did I do? Basically, that code that I just ran, I essentially just put that into here for the tool. So here's the sitemap URL. That's the input is the sitemap URL. And then, I just gave it a name, description, and this is the run function. This is essentially the same thing. I'm going to get the CrewAI docs URL. This could be, more generalized, but I'm going to pass in the sitemap URL. Then we're going to run the crawl parallel. And then here's the function that this is essentially the same function copied. Okay, the only thing that I've done is that I do print out the URL in the markdown so that you can see. I only have it returning the first 250 characters in the markdown, but just so you can see that it actually is scraping all of this stuff really quickly. And then we just return the markdown results. And what I wanted to do is I just wanted to give me a summary of these markdown results. And then we're just gonna, again, just show how long that took. Okay, then the crew, if we just look at this really quick, this essentially, pretty bare bones. There's one researcher. I pass in the custom tool. We have a task, and then that's about it. Then in the main Python function, I just pass in the sitemap URL, kick off the crew, and I just run it. Okay. There's not much going on here, but this local crawler can be done without connecting. You don't need an API key. right? So this is great to have like a local, as part of your local setup. And as you just saw, it's very fast. Let's go into our crawl crew. I'm gonna say Python source crawl crew / main.py. And then let's see what it does. Again, I had to run this offline from recording, so I had to turn off my recording software so that it would be done in a short amount of time, and it did get done very quickly. So we got the crawl expert. Again, I had mostly the same outputs or print statements. So we found 73 URLs from the sitemap. It successfully crawled this. This is the URL, and these are the first 250 characters from from searching that URL or scraping it, and it just did that for all the URLs. And then, so basically, it doesn't have all of that information, right? I don't believe it has all the information inside of there. Yeah, I typically you wouldn't really do this, right? You'd probably put this in long-term memory and then ask questions about it, or get some information about it. But so this was the tool output. This is what it got. This was the sitemap URL for the tool, because we only asked for the URL. Then we got the output, and then the final answer is that it crawled this URL, talking about it used a lot of got links from CrewAI Documentation. I wasn't really concerned about the output of this. I just really wanted to show you how easy it was. I essentially copied it and just modified a few things that you need to for a tool within CrewAI, but it just worked wonderfully. And now I have a local crawler that works very fast, very well, and it did so many URLs and scrape them. And instead, what I could do is you can make documents. You could take the documents from each of those, put them into a page in Google Drive, and then Google Drive could take that, could put all those into a vector database, such as Pinecone, Chroma, Quadrant, whatever that may be. And then now you have all these documents very quickly, and they're stored in your Google Drive. And then you can have chatbot with all that documentation. Thank you for watching. This was something that I really advocate for. This was really powerful, and it didn't take me too long to get to kind of understand how things work. I will have this in my GitHub repository. Thank you again. I have more videos for you to watch here. I will see you next video.